Right. What is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. Per the usual, I'm your host, Coach J.K. McLeod. We're kicking off another fitness-focused episode of Help Me Understand. It's what we do here on Tuesdays. And today, I'm going to talk to you about reframing your rest days and why I call them recharge days. So before we get into that, as always, I want to say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I know that you have plenty, an endless stream of podcast content that you can and most likely do consume. So I just like to take a moment when I can to truly say thank you and express gratitude for you, including the Help Me Understand podcast in your listening queue. Speaking of your listening queue, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast on either the audio platform or possibly YouTube, if you happen to be watching there or both, I would sincerely appreciate it if you did follow the show, like, subscribe, all those good things. It costs you $0.0 to do that. All right, let's jump into today's topic. So as I mentioned right at the top here, I want to talk to you about reframing rest days and why I call them recharge days. So in the world that I am in within the fitness space, I think that rest days might be one of the most misunderstood parts of a workout program. And I think the way that we tend to think about them is really incomplete. So very commonly, the questions that I will get will be along the range of how often should I rest? Do I really need to take a rest days? Like, what am I supposed to do on a rest day? Can I still do cardio? I think that I've heard just about every sort of version of these. And also, I identify as someone who, while I have gotten much, much better at it, tended to really struggle with wrapping my mind around the effectiveness of a rest day. And I really think that we're asking these particular questions like, do I have to take a rest day? How often should I? Can I still do cardio? Things like that. I think that we're asking these from, I don't want to say necessarily the wrong angle. I think there's definitely just a better way to approach it. So let's start off with talking about why I think that rest days tend to really just get overcomplicated and really overthought. So they always seem to be near the top of conversation when it comes to the effectiveness of a particular program. Sometimes I think that folks will look at a particular program, and if they are seeing that it's, say, 3 workout days or 4 workout days, and then programmed for, let's say, 2 days of rest, maybe even 3 days of rest time, they think that that maybe equals a less effective program. And I think also sometimes that rest days really just, honestly, they just get overthought, and it's something that you've got to completely optimize and you have to nail like the right way to rest. And if I were really focused mostly on how to make this like really clickbaity and things like that, I would basically title this episode, "You're Doing Your Rest Days All Wrong." And if I were to do that, it just wouldn't really sit right with me, because all it's going to do is just continue to feed the machine that I think is already powerful enough with providing more paranoia and more complexity. So I am not here to tell you that you're doing your rest days wrong and here's how you get it right. I promise you that my primary focus here is really on providing you a different perspective, perhaps, if you're not familiar with the perspective that I bring to it, and perhaps a way to just really reframe it. So I think that from my perspective, the underlying issue when we're really overcomplicating rest days is that we're looking at rest days only as recovery from what you just did. And my take here is that that only is half of the picture here. So the reframe that I want to give you is, what if instead of rest day, you thought of it as a recharge day? So what if instead of a rest day, you thought of it as a recharge day? So let's break that down. So instead of simply only thinking of a rest day as recovery, which is looking backward, I want to challenge you to think about your rest day as a recharge day, where you're actually looking forward. So a rest day helps you recover from the last session that you had. A recharge day prepares you for the next one that you're going to do. So to help drive this perspective home a bit, let's talk about what training actually does. And I'm primarily talking about weightlifting here, lifting weights, bodybuilding, that sort of thing. So training is purposeful stress. You are putting your body through stress on purpose. You're challenging your muscles. You are challenging your central nervous system, also referred to as your CNS. You are challenging your heart rate many times. You are purposely inducing proper overall fatigue. And that's the point. Like that's work. Okay. However, or howbeiver, if you only think about your rest days as recovery from that work that you only did, you really miss the role of recharging to be ready to perform again for your next workout. I think of it, you guys who've listened to the podcast before, you know I am all about my analogies. So I think about it very similar to like your phone battery. The majority of us, for the most part, minus my kids, are not comfortable walking around with our phone at like 15 to 20%. So by the way, if you have teenagers who have phones, if you know, then you totally know what I'm talking about. So most of us, however, don't walk around with our phone at that low of a battery percentage. We don't tend to wait until it dies to charge it. But that's exactly how I will find that a lot of folks are treating their body. They're waiting until they get completely run down, and they're utilizing that as the signal that they need to go ahead and recharge. Like that's the time to do it. And I really want to challenge you here to treat your body better than you do your phone. So what can recharge activities look like? Before I get into this, again, let me go back to something I mentioned near the top of this episode before I started really getting into it. My intention here is not to tell you that these are the only approved things that you can do. These are the things you must do. These are the only things. Like your boy is not all about restriction here. These are strong recommendations based on my experience and the experience of those who have done my programs over 10 years. So first, let's look at that recharge in two lanes. We've got a physical recharge and then we have a mental recharge. So from a physical recharge standpoint, here are some things that I would recommend including in your options. So think of it like a recharge buffet of sorts. So your physical recharge buffet, let's call it that. Things like going for walks, doing some lighter cardio. So yes, this will answer that question that I posed earlier that comes all the time. Hey, is it okay to do some cardio? Some lighter cardio, something that is in the, let's say the zone 2, maybe 3-ish range. For those who find the zone 2 to 3 thing to be fairly confusing, then maybe the talk test is something that's helpful. So it's something where you could complete full sentences, maybe potentially once in a great while during that complete sentence. You would have some sentences that are maybe a little bit broken. However, you could, for example, you could do that light cardio while you were also, this is the example I use with my clients all the time who work from home. You could also do that while you were on a Teams call or a Zoom call. And if you needed to chime in, you could chime in while still getting your walk on. For some folks, they'll say like a light jog. I can't relate to that. I am either like my heart rate is either pretty high when I'm running or it's not. There's no in between. So some light cardio though can definitely fit the bill. Fantastic time from a physical recharge standpoint to focus on doing mobility type work, whether it be straight mobility, whether it be something more along the lines of restorative style yoga, things like that. Absolutely fantastic. Some really just lower intensity movement that doesn't significantly raise your heart rate over a lengthened period of time. So those are some things from a physical recharge standpoint. Then there's also the lane. So these are not two completely different directions. These are two lanes that run parallel in my world. So there's the mental recharge. You can, and I strongly recommend that you take time to spend with friends and family. If you tend to be somebody who typically gets up earlier in the morning to do your workouts and you've got 2 to 3 recharge days, it doesn't necessarily mean that your wake up schedule has to change, especially if you tend to be somebody who just is into that rhythm, like myself. Even on my recharge days, I'll still typically get up around the same time, about 30 to 45 minutes around the same time that I normally do. And you can definitely take that time to connect with friends and family. If nobody else is up, this can be a fantastic time to try and get a leg up on some meal prep uh, and different things like that. Some other things can be reading, listening to a podcast, which some of these things can actually be paired with the physical recharge piece. When I finally made that shift in my mindset with thinking about the days that I wasn't lifting or doing high intensity cardio as my recharge days as opposed to my rest days, I would utilize that particular time to listen to podcasts about fitness. That actually is something that I give a lot of credit to, where a lot of my knowledge and immersion within the fitness space really happened was as I started to educate myself more and more and more via podcasts, via educational content, as I was taking walks on my recharge days. So yeah, even though I wasn't physically lifting weights, I was learning more about lifting weights at the time. So again, great time to read, listen to a podcast, an audiobook, reviewing your upcoming training sessions. This can also be a good time to do that. So really the main thing is that this recharge time isn't doing nothing. It's not just laying face down on the couch, although that's what you need to do. That's what you got to do. It's not just doing nothing. It's doing what's really going to help you show up better in your next session. So again, just remembering that, shifting that frame from the rest day, instead of a rest day that's all about trying to recover from what you've already done, we are reframing it as a recharge day so that we can put ourselves in the best possible position to really take advantage of the next upcoming training session that we have. So I want you to really just focus on what I'll call like planning instead of reacting. So don't wait until you absolutely feel wrecked to take a rest day. That is something that transparently, for the most part, I used to do very regularly. I would design my workout program and I would just say, well, when I feel run down, that's when I know that I'll need to rest. My body will tell me when it's time to rest. And I, now looking back on it, realize that even though I was able to, like, even though I powered through, I wasn't, as I look back at what my numbers look like and what things look like. Yeah, I did fine. I survived. I mean, I'm still here to talk about it. And also, I saw that I was really actually slowing down my progress by doing that. So I'm not gonna be one of those folks who's gonna pretend like, man, I was doing it all wrong and I was constantly sore and beaten down and all this other stuff. That may be someone's story. I'm not going to embellish that that was my story at all. What it really was, it's very similar. It's very similar to how I felt for a while. Random story. When I was walking around thinking that my glasses, like I had a great prescription for my glasses, and I had forgotten that I was due for an eye exam. And I was like, well, I don't know if I need to really go in. Like I have insurance where I can get that eye exam every year through my insurance. I'm blessed to have that. And I had missed, I think, one particular year, and I was like, oh snap, I need to go in and do that. But I got a feeling like things haven't really changed. I can see just fine. I'm not having any issues. Well, I go in, get the eye exam, and there are some slight changes. And it was really interesting because even with those slight changes, I saw things a lot better. And it was very similar to how I now look back at the times where I was in that mindset of I'll just take a rest when I need to. I felt like I was completely fine. It wasn't that big of a deal and all that stuff. Now, and this happened some years ago where I did transition that mindset from rest into recharge time. Now that I take those recharge days to really prepare myself to do better in the next workout or be prepared to do as best as I can in the next upcoming workout, I really find that my performance tends to be better. I tend to be less injury prone, less overall soreness and things like that. So that's what I wanted to pass on with that, as far as really planning those things ahead as opposed to having that reaction strategy. So I strongly recommend that you actually plan those recharge days into your week. For most of the population that I tend to serve with my programs, y'all have things to do. You've got plenty of things that are going on. So when you have a particularly packed day, when you've got a particular day where, even though it may not necessarily be packed with commitments, they may be heavy commitments. Things like it's going to be a particular event that you know is just going to really drain your social battery and maybe even your physical battery. Maybe, let's keep it real, there's particular folks that are going to be at that particular event that you just know, like, you're just going to be drained from having to kind of deal with them for a while. Then those can be days where it makes sense for you to then take that recharge day the next day or whatever the case may be. So that's where the lifestyle centric brain that I have when it comes to fitness really starts to put these things in play. So utilize those the commitments that you have as essentially built-in recharge days. So instead of looking at things like vacations, trips, commitments, anything like that, Freudian slip, I call those things like forced recharge days. Like, use those to your advantage. So if it's like, man, I've got this day, I've got work and I've got to get my kid like straight to the baseball field as soon as I get out of work. So it's going to be really tough to squeeze it in. Okay, let's use that to your advantage. Life is going to go ahead and give us a recharge day that day, and then we'll plan accordingly. So use those things to your advantage. Make them intentional, not reactive. So if your rest days only happen when your body forces you into one, that is not a strategy. That is absolutely reactionary. Okay. So to close this out, just a few reminders for you. The rest days, I want you to really reframe those. If you are someone who struggles with rest days, start to transition of thinking, instead of I need to rest from what I've done, think I need to recharge so that I can do the best that I can in what's to come up. Also think about the fact that those recharge days are there again for what you are getting ready to do. So if you start treating those rest days as recharge days, I think that your training truly, truly will start to reflect it. So as we close things out, if you think that this helped you possibly think about your training a little bit differently, I would sincerely appreciate hearing your feedback on that. You can always reach out to me with feedback about the show, with questions, comments, suggestions for topics are always welcome for sure. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Coach JK McLeod. That's MCLEOD. Or you can email me at jk@jkmcleod.com. So my email is jk@jkmcleod.com. So always open to suggestions that you might have for episode topics. This one was coming straight off the dome because it's one that comes across my plate pretty often, and around this time of the year where we have gotten past the excitement of the new year, then we are transitioning from winter into spring here. So for some of us, the weather is broke just a little bit, and we're about to have a decent amount of commitments, maybe going into summer. It can be a bit tougher to kind of figure out like what the schedule is going to be. So hopefully this helps smooth things out a bit for you. And again, if you have comments, questions, feedback, all that good stuff, reach out. All right. Thank you again so much for listening to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I truly appreciate it. Take care, and I will talk to you next time. Bye now.